Drudge Report, you've been covering this rather aggressively on the internet. What's your take?
Shock, and very much concerned that there's been deception for years coming out of this White House. I mean, this intern relationship didn't happen last week. It happened over a course of a year and a half. And I'm concerned also there's a press corps that wasn't monitoring the situation close enough. I've been told if Mr. Clinton asks for the release of his deposition in the Paula Jones case, the gag order may be lifted for the specific release of this. I think this is one stroke he could do immediately by asking the court down in Little Rock to release his deposition. And again, it's my understanding from sources down there that they would grant it. And the people would get to see exactly what he said. Stop hiding behind gag orders. This is the wrong time to do this when you have so much at stake.
There have been reports that on the tapes between Monica Lewinsky and Linda Tripp, there are discussions of other women, including other White House staffers involved with the president. Do you have any information on that?
There is talk all over this town. Another White House staffer is going to come out from behind the curtains this week. If this is the case, and you couple this with the headline that the New York Post has, there are hundreds, according to Ms. Lewinsky, quoting Clinton, we're in for a huge shock that goes beyond a specific episode. It's a whole psychosis taking place in the White House.
Mr. Safire, Bill Safire, you're an expert with words. The President of the United States has an interesting history. Jennifer Flower's story is not correct, and then reportedly confirms an affair with her under oath. I didn't inhale with his discussion of marijuana. Will these kinds of legalisms, these kinds of finessing work in this situation?
First, Tim, I may be the last person in America who still thinks that the financial relationship that Bill Clinton has with the Riyadi family in Indonesia is a lot more important than any possible sexual relationship he had with a White House aide. But I guess I'm a weirdo. On the splitting hairs, we have to allow for the possibility that the president is telling his version of the truth. And when he says there was no improper sexual relationship, perhaps in his mind he's thinking of, there he is in the White House, and it can be a lonely job, and he's going through a midlife crisis around 50, and here's this adoring, fun young thing, and over the course of 18 months, he becomes friendly with her and a kind of mentor to her, and gets some genuine pleasure out of being with her and talking to her late at night on the telephone or in person. Now, it may be that he slipped a few times and some sex was involved. But that's why he can say that, truthfully in his own mind, that it was not primarily a sexual relationship. And that, I think, may be at the heart of his defense.
Would that fly with the American people? A president having sex with a White House intern in the White House, but he's saying because it was a certain type of sex, it was not improper and I should keep my job.
Will it fly? It will elicit great disapproval. But will it drive him from the White House? I don't know. I think what they're trying to do is say, let's separate the relationship from crime. Did he or did he not suborn perjury? And when it comes down to that, as Stuart Taylor here can tell you, it'll be a tough thing to prove, particularly when Vernon Jordan or the president can say, I never told her to lie. Now, if instead he had said, we can count on you, can't we? Or you're discreet, aren't you? Is that saying lie? You see where there's a gray area there.
Stuart Taylor, in his deposition in the Paula Jones case, President Clinton, it's reported, said that he did not have a sexual relationship with Monica Lewinsky. In a civil case, you have a chance to reread your deposition before you sign it, and you can change it or amend it. Now, this would be a material change, but if the president decided to change his sworn statement that, well, when I was asked that question about improper, this was my definition, and in hindsight, I'm changing my view. Is that a possibility?
I never say anything's impossible, but it seems to me a very remote one for a number of reasons. First, I would imagine Paula Jones's lawyers didn't settle for a general denial. They would have asked very specific questions, and he would have had to deny all kinds of things that aren't that I'm not going to mention on camera. It's not going to be, did you have an improper relationship? It's going to be, did her lips ever, you know, that sort of thing. But in addition, I think there is a right to correct yourself in a perjury-type situation if it's prompt and spontaneous and seems to be just either a correction of the record or kind of a guilty conscience. If there's overwhelming proof casting doubt on the credibility of the original statement that comes, and then you say, come to think of it, I'm going to change that, I don't think it would do much good. One other point in response to Bill, I think you're right that subornation of perjury is very hard to prove. But there's a little piece of evidence here that might make it less hard if they can prove a sexual relationship than usual. Monica Lewinsky filed an affidavit in Bill Clinton's case, Paula Jones versus Bill Clinton, in early January that said no sexual relationship. I would assume that Bob Bennett, the president's lawyer, showed him that affidavit or told him what was in it when he was preparing him for his own deposition. At that point, he was on notice that if in fact there was a sexual relationship, Monica Lewinsky had lied under oath on his behalf, and whatever ambiguity there might have been in the conversations at the time they were had would be gone.
Michael Isikoff, you heard James Carville say this is war between friends of Bill Clinton and Kenneth Starr. Are you surprised by that strategy?
Well, it's certainly in keeping with Mr. Carville's aggressive damage control PR efforts on behalf of the president. The problem is that what we didn't hear from Mr. Carville was a full explanation and a plausible storyline that the president and his defenders can stand behind. And that's, I think, been the most damaging thing for the president this week and the most unsettling thing for his supporters. Look, the Clinton camp and this Clinton White House is certainly used to a lot of charges being thrown at them and a lot of allegations made. But in every past case, they are always right back in their accuser's face with the rapid response. They get out the evidence that supports their side of things, and they've been able to bat down allegation after allegation, even when a lot of them look to a lot of people as pretty serious. This is the one where I think the most stunning thing to people in Washington has been the lack of response, the tepid response, those one comments to that one day, and then total silence on what the true facts are.
Matt Drudge, James Carville declared war this morning. What do you make of it?
Well, I think we're going to give them some more. And if this is how they're going to go out, if this is going to be their tack to not go quietly, but to go out screaming and kicking, when you've got a line of women who have testified under oath that they've had relationships with this man that have been improper, among other things, which I think we'll find out this week. I think the upcoming week, you thought last week was bad. This upcoming week is going to be one of the worst weeks in the history of this country if they're going to take a attack that this is all made up and this is all Ken Starr. What do you make of Mr. Carville's argument that these are charges being made by political enemies of the president? Well, this would, if this is their tact to go after the accuser, to accuse the accuser, and to try to get in front of what's actually happening by lying on top of lies, I think we're going to have such serious trouble, and his legacy is going to be that, just that. Cover-up does work only to a certain degree, and I think it has worked for years and years because of a press corps who has been sleeping. But I think the clock is stuck at midnight.
Bill Safire, front page of your newspaper, the New York Times, said that the administration is seriously considering attacking Iraq as soon as Friday, probably within the next few weeks, unless Saddam Hussein allows chemical weapons and inspections. There's a movie called Wag the Dog that is now being viewed in screens all across the country. The president has brought Harry Thompson back to Washington, his movie producer friend. How is America, how is the world going to respond to a military attack to Iraq in the middle of this crisis?
Tim, I've never been soft on Clinton. I can't be accused of that. I think when it comes down to putting the lives of Americans in danger, he will act like a patriot. He will do what is the right thing. I don't go for this talk of Carville's war or Mr. Drudge's response. I think there will be a pulling back now by everybody a little bit, not only the media, but both the White House and the people prosecuting him, to explore what we really know and what the accusations will be and what the defense will be. And I think certainly Republicans are wise to shut up and let this progress. And I think most of the American public, which is really turned off at what looks like terrible, terrible moral behavior, will say, wait a minute, we've got a president, he's the only president we have, and when it comes to acting on behalf of the nation, we can argue with him on Medicare and things like that, but when it comes to putting lives in danger, he is going to be acting as the commander-in-chief and not a defendant in the case.
Do you believe Bill Clinton survives this crisis without resigning or being impeached?
I think it's too soon to say. I think he's going to fight, in his own words, till the last dog dies. It could be the last dog will die, and that would be when Tom Daschle and Dick Eberhart and Ted Kennedy comes to visit him the way Goldwater came to visit Nixon.
That has to be the last
But
word.
that's too long from now.
William Safire, Matt Drudge, Stuart Taylor, Michael Isikoff, thank you all for joining us this morning for a most interesting